Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in to this pattern review. I'm going to share with you the pattern that I used as well as the fabric that I used. And let's get into it. All right, so the New Look 6413 is the pattern that I chose, which is a pattern that has 5 different variations. So you have 2 variations of a jumpsuit, 2 variations of a dress, and then 1 variation of like this OB belt that you can make. So I decided to make view D, which is the dress, and it has an elasticated waist. You have grown on sleeves. You have a V-neck line. You have front and back facings, and then you have a skirt pattern piece that is just one pattern piece, but you're cutting that pattern piece out twice. So it's a very easy pattern to sew because you don't have any set-in sleeves and you only have the one pattern piece for your skirt pattern. You do have a pattern piece for a separate pattern piece for the back and a separate pattern piece for the front. But as I mentioned before, no set-in sleeves, so nothing to worry about there. So I will tell you, I did make quite a few changes to this pattern. So it's not quite the same as what you get in the envelope, but the changes that I made really doesn't really affect the pattern review. I still was able to sew the pattern very closely to what the design of the pattern is. So I can still give you the review of that and tell you what's going on there. I did find that the sleeve, the longer sleeve, which is for view B, was really quite too long. It didn't really look the same, in my opinion, as you see on the model. I really didn't like it. And so I had to make some alterations to that. I found that the waistline was dropped quite a bit, and I really didn't like that I didn't like that either. And so I had to raise the waistline about 1.5 inches, which was really frustrating for me because it was just, just so much fabric that I was losing at that point. And I also, let's see here, the front is supposed to be cut twice because the pattern calls for you to put a zipper down the center front of the garment. But I have found that the pattern has so much ease that you don't have to do that. And so I decided to take out that 5/8 of an inch that is on the center front and just put my pattern on fold. So I did that for the front and the back because the back calls for you to cut out 2 pattern pieces as well. And since there's really no shaping going on back there, I decided I might as well just put it on the fold because you do have quite a bit of fabric back there because you are putting an elastic in the waistline. I can understand why they had the pattern cut twice for the center front. If you want to have a jumpsuit or a dress that has a zipper opening on it and you want to get in and out of your dress that way, it is very easy and it's more accommodating because you don't have a lot of fabric that you're cinching in. And so the zipper on the front does make it easier for you to get in and out of the garment. But I decided to just omit it and just use this as an over the head. I think for my second version, I might actually try it with the zipper just simply because I do have a broad back. And so lifting the garment up and putting it on, it is quite a bit of work for me. But at the same time, it's not too bad. So if you want to put your pattern pieces on fold, you can do that. But if you are someone that want to get in and out of your garment more easily, I would definitely say put the zipper in the garment so that way you can get in and out the garment more easily. So that's basically the biggest change that I did to the pattern is I just omitted the seam line for the front and the back, and I placed my pattern pieces on fold. I also did a forward shoulder adjustment because I have sloping shoulders, and so I only had to do it by 3/8 of an inch, so it wasn't a big deal. And like I said, I had to raise the seam line for the waistline as well. View D, that pattern piece I found to be a little bit long. And so I actually shortened it a little bit. And I'll show you what my garment looks like. And so I chose this beautiful charmeuse fabric from Joann Fabrics, and it's such a beautiful fabric. It does fray quite a bit, and so my recommendation would be, as soon as you get it, serge the ends of it so that your fabric, you aren't eating into your fabric, because it will fray. It frays in the wash. It frayed after they cut it at the cutting counter. It started to fray. And so I would definitely say serge it before you put it in the wash so that it can stop some of the fraying. And then also make sure with each step, like after you make your skirt, serge your skirt. After you make your top, serge your ends and everything, because you don't want it to, especially before you have the chance to put your neck facing on, you don't want the fabric to be fraying. But other than that, it sewed up really well. I would also say make sure you use a brand new needle, and make sure you also use brand new pins. If you're going to use stick pins to hold your fabric together, make sure you use clean and new pins. Some of my pins were old. Fortunately, when I tore my fabric with my pin, like I got little snags, it was in the seam allowance and it didn't go beyond that. And so I got lucky a couple times when I was sticking my fabric. I started to have some fabric runs, but it didn't go beyond the seam allowance. So I would definitely say this is a fabric that you want to make sure that you are using nice, clean, and new pens and needles for, because you don't want to snag or have like a run going down your dress. So that's the only thing that I would say in terms of like things that you want to pay close attention to with this fabric. You definitely want to have those clean needles. So I thought about doing the View E, which is the OB belt. I haven't done it yet. If I do it after this video, before posting this video, you'll see it. But I haven't made that yet. I'm still looking for some fabric to go with that. So I selected the size 16, and the size 16 for the bust is 45 inches and the size 16 for the hips is 45 inches. I would definitely grade out to the size 18 next time for my hips. And that's saying something because I really don't have hips. And so the fact that I have to grade out to my hips, this is a pattern that is kind of stiff in that way. You don't have a whole lot of room in your hips for this pattern. And so I definitely would say check your pattern pieces, measure your pattern pieces, subtract your seam allowance, and do all those things before going into the project, because that might be necessary for you. For the size 16 for the bust, it does feel, I thought that it would be loose because normally I would go with a size 43. I like to have about 2.5 inches of ease, sometimes 3 inches of ease, depending on what the garment is, so I can pull the garment overhead or whatever. I would say that this, in terms of how it fits nicely. However, getting it off is a pain. So I would definitely say make sure you sew the zipper in the front if you are not someone who wants to take your garment and, lift over your head very often. So the sleeve pattern, like I said, was very long in the tooth. I didn't really like the way that it fit. And so I cut off about 3.5 inches for my sleeve. So it's not View B, but it's also not View A. So it's in between View A and View B. And so my sleeve pattern, I feel like it's a mid-length sleeve pattern, and it accommodates for my needs anyway. So that's something that you might want to pay attention to as well, because I found that the longer the sleeve was, the more frumpy it looked underneath the underarm. I would say that underneath the underarm can stand to have about maybe an inch taken out. I didn't do that because I thought with the charmeuse fabric, it'll drape nicely, and it looks okay. So I'm not too hung up on it. I did a really narrow hem. I believe the pattern calls for a 5/8 of an inch hem for your sleeve and for your skirt, but I did a narrow 3/8 of an inch hem for my skirt and also for my sleeve as well. So I have narrow sleeves there. Now, as I stated before, the pattern calls for an elasticated waist, and I believe you're supposed to elasticate the entire waist. I decided not to do that. I just elasticated the back because I wanted to have a nice seam in the front that was visible, and I didn't really want elastic bunching up on my waist in the front. And so I decided to do that for the pattern. Now, I can't give you any recommendations or anything for the jumpsuit. I did not make the jumpsuit pattern, so I don't know anything about the pants. I will say that the pattern calls for pockets, and your pocket pattern is supposed to be for all variations, including the jumpsuit and the skirt. I did not place the pockets in my skirt. I just thought that it would be really awkward with a nice semi-casual or not semi-casual, sorry, semi-formal or formal garment like this. This, because it's a charmeuse fabric, I just think putting pockets in it just won't be very attractive in my opinion. So I decided not to put the pockets in the garment. So the pattern calls for the view that I did, view D, 2 yards of fabric, and that's exactly how much I purchased from Joann's. I will say, because I shortened my skirt a little bit, I saved about, I don't know, 2, maybe 3 inches. I think maybe 3 inches from that. And my fabric didn't really shrink in the wash because it's a 100% polyester charmeuse fabric, so it really didn't shrink. And let's see here. The suggested fabrics are charmeuse, so that's the very first recommendation, and that's what I chose. Cotton lawn, cotton type fabrics, crepe, crepe back satin, crepe de chine, double georgette, lightweight linen fabrics, and silky type fabrics, and you can also use voile fabrics as well. In terms of your requirements, it calls for 1 12-inch zipper and 1 package of a 1/4 inch wide elastic. And for A and B, you need 5/8 yards of 3/4 inch wide elastic. So for views A and B, you're supposed to have a wider elastic, but for view, I believe C and D, you have a more narrow elastic. So you have your 1/4 inch wide elastic, and that's what I used for my variation. So that is my pattern review of the New Look 6413. I had fun sewing this. I really do like the way that it turned out. It is a little snug around the hip, but in the future, if I make this, I definitely would grade out to the size 18 to give me just a little bit more room. Other than that, I love the way that it turned out. I love the way that it fits. I hope you all enjoyed yourself. If you did, please make sure you give this video a big thumbs up. If you're new to the channel and you haven't subscribed yet, please consider subscribing if you like today's video or if you like the content on my channel. All right, everyone, have a happy and blessed sewing week. Bye.